Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Acolyte, where this time it is the third episode called Destiny. And once again, I'm just going to let Sailor Naboo here open it up, and we're just going to have a little discussion about this latest episode. What did you think about it? What is your ever so brief review?
I was definitely left with a lot more questions than answers, which made me very upset.
Answers? What are answers?
Exactly. There were none.
The show or episode was very vague. The entire show has been very vague so far. That is probably my biggest gripe.
I understand that this is probably intentional. I mean, she kept describing it as a mystery, a puzzle box. Week by week, you'll know a little bit more. But I feel like week by week, I need to know more, and I don't get that.
I think a good mystery, though, gives you some genuine clues and genuine things to kind of latch onto. And I feel like this is so vague that you're left like, I don't get it.
Well, when you leave it super vague like they have, without giving solid, concrete, this is what we're trying to say here, they're leaving it open to the worst possible explanations.
Interpretations, yeah.
Exactly. Which is what they've done. Which is normal for people. I mean, generally, that's my brain, I know. But I like to, when I examine something, sometimes I start with the worst possible scenarios and work my way the other direction.
This is true, and I'm kind of the opposite.
Yes.
I tend to be very charitable and generous in my initial assessments, and then kind of pick it apart and find out the truth. I like to try to...
So I'll probably be less harsh on this than you were.
Which doesn't make sense because you tend to be harsh first, you said.
Well, I am harsh, but harsh in a different way than other people are. In my own way, I guess.
You're not a very harsh person.
I don't know. Maybe I'm phrasing this horribly.
You are phrasing it wrong because I feel like I know you pretty well, and you're not a harsh person. You are too nice of a person, usually.
So I probably went too nice on this episode. I definitely saw comments of what the majority interpretation is on the events of this episode. And while I do see the points, I do see what they're seeing, I also see what the Acolyte isn't saying, and that's the questions I have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Should we just start with my list? I don't know.
We should dive in. I think we're like 2 minutes in, and I feel like we haven't said anything about the episode.
Excellent. First question I had. Okay, so the twins. Let's start with the elephant in the room. I saw a lot of people saying, look, it's immaculate conception. They're undermining Anakin as the chosen one.
That's not exactly what it implies. It implies that
that girls get it done?
No, actually, it doesn't imply. I would argue it does not imply that there's some sort of act between the two of them that have created an offspring. And my evidence for that, I guess you could call it, is when she talks about that I created them. I would imagine if two people do something to create a baby, you don't say I did that. You say we did that. So it would be, and it kind of stings her too in a way when she says that I created them, and they also don't look anything like the Zabrak, like mother.
No, they actually look more like...
They look almost exactly
like Anastasia.
Yeah, more or less.
Not to mention, they both have Anastasia's last name.
Yeah. She
May
has
and
created
Osha
them
Anastasia.
somehow. I don't think it was some kind of act between the two mothers.
Well, this is one of my first questions, is how did they make these twins? Was it something to the effect that Korra is a surrogate for Anastasia? Maybe,
well, yeah,
you know?
yes, but is it more mystical or is it more scientific?
Looking at evidence from the episode, and I'm going to say things people aren't going to enjoy here.
Ooh, okay.
Evidence from the episode, when the Jedi showed up, the cops came to raid their facility.
Basically, you could look at it that way, yeah.
What does Mother Anastasia do? She immediately takes a hostage. Torben the Padawan, we black out his eyes, he is now slave to the witch.
Yeah, or something. We don't know what's really going on there.
Could they have done something like this to make the baby?
Wow, you're going dark,
I told you
aren't
I'm going dark right off the bat. I mean, the only evidence I have is what is presented in the episode.
I feel like
that's what I'm going to go by.
I feel like we're having a Wonder Woman 1984 moment here where...
Well, no, I'm literally using what we were shown in the episode.
Okay.
Mother Anastasia has the ability to take control of somebody's mind.
I take it all back. Your mind does go to the worst possible places first.
What's to say she did not do this to create a baby? They wouldn't look at him as a father. That's not a father. That was a puppet.
Wow, a meat puppet.
I was going to say meat puppet, and I backed off. I was also going to say a sperm donor, and I backed away from there.
Wow, this is...
I just went with puppet.
We're going all in.
Hey, these are Sailor Naboo crazy theories.
This is Clonikin level of theory right here.
Well, I'm just saying, could that be a possibility? Did she possibly force Jedi to do things that, Jedi or other people who were possibly strong in the Force? Did she manipulate them to create life?
That is one way to put it. Sounds like you were in a court of law trying to defend somebody for doing something very atrocious.
Yeah. There are words you can't say, and I try to say
there are.
them.
Yes, YouTube doesn't like certain words.
But that was one of the possibilities I came up with. Rather than immaculate conception, she manipulated the Force. Did she perhaps manipulate somebody else?
Well, maybe to actually back it up, but probably not. Afterwards, after they discuss how I created it and I kind of carried them, it is said that if the Jedi find out how they were made, you would be in a lot of trouble, basically. That is not the quote.
I think I had that written down somewhere, too.
Like, if they find out how the twins were made, there's going to be some serious trouble.
Right.
Now, I mean, that would get you in trouble, certainly, but not the kind of trouble I think was implied, but who knows?
Well, here's my next little query. What did they do that the Republic decided they were not allowed to train kids and exiled them?
That sounds really bad, too.
I know.
You gotta stay 100 feet away from a school or 1,000
exactly.
yards,
Keep the witches away from the schools. Like, what were they doing? Were they doing weird things with kids or doing weird things to try and create kids?
I feel like we're going dark
Were
side.
they manipulating kids to, like, give them powers to make them witches?
That's a possibility.
They're doing this ascension ceremony. Were they the ones kidnapping children? Were they taking Force sensitives that perhaps the Jedi wished to test?
Well, this is you're.
What did the Republic? What did they do that caught the attention of the Jedi and the Republic? They're like, no, exile them, and now we're gonna like do a home visit and be like, you guys aren't allowed to have kids, right? You are not allowed to train kids.
Okay, yeah. I like where you're going here because my biggest complaint with this episode is just no context.
Right.
None. Like, we have to assume that the witches did something bad, yet at the same time, the episode presents them as kind of good and kind of misunderstood. But you've got on the Republic's radar where they apparently made a law where you can't train children.
That they can't train children.
We don't know if it's specific them or like there's just
be.
general rule in the galaxy where you can't train children without a license or something or be a Jedi.
Well, you have to allow them to be tested. Like, the
Yes,
Jedi can
which
show up
was
and go,
weird
we want to test your kids, and if the kids can go, yeah, I want to be tested, you can't stop them.
Which is interesting. That could lead us down a whole interesting conversation as well about the child's choice versus the parent's choice.
Yes, but what's the deal? What stopped them? What does the Republic have that they said nah? And because obviously whatever this is, what forced these witches to have this now doctrine of, well, it's not about who has the power. It's not
about good or bad. It's about power and who gets to use it.
Right. Of course they have this idea because the Republic said, no, you guys can't.
No,
because they're doing
that
something
context actually
shady.
works. Though we don't know the context for that context.
Exactly. So we have some piece of context, but we're missing another piece. But this episode was entirely from Osha's point of view.
Not entirely. I would say the ending was. Mainly from her point of view, but we do get things that aren't necessarily from her point of view. We do get some like private conversations between Mother...
But this is... Okay, we could say it's from the witch's point of view.
Yeah, okay.
And then Osha at the end.
Yeah.
Then there's like the whole deal with the fire, which is what I'm going to call it, because it's definitely more than a fire.
Before we go there, I do want to point out with that law, or that the Jedi... Like, Indara says you have to let us... test them with your permission. That didn't... These are my problems with the episode.
No, I think she was trying to, like, be courteous in a way. Like, it's the law, you have to let us test them.
With
your permission. Maybe because she's trying to still say things diplomatically, like, we're not here to start trouble, we're not here to start a fight.
She says that. They even say we're not here to, like, Sol even points out, like, we're not going to take your children, that's not why we're here, but we're going to test them, and if they're force sensitive, we're probably going to take your kids. Seems to kind of get implied.
Yeah, but they knew that May and Osha were force sensitive. They saw proof of both of them being force sensitive, but they didn't demand to take them.
This is my issue.
They were going to leave May.
The episode doesn't actually want to say anything. It is so vague that the things that people are getting mad about, I'm like, it doesn't actually say that.
Because it doesn't say anything.
That that's the problem. It doesn't take a stand anywhere. It's like, here's this weird event that is out of context, and it's like, come to your conclusion to who's the bad guy. And it's like, well,
and that's the worst thing you can tell the internet to do. Come to your own conclusion, because what conclusion everyone came to? And hopefully that it's not true.
Well, no, some people, I've seen both sides. I've seen, well, look, it shows how stupid and terrible the Jedi are. They came to snatch kids and were spying. And then there's other people who are like, well, what did the witches do that they got on the bad side of the Republic?
And I think that was the intention of what Leslie Headland is doing.
Unfortunately, I do, but it's being executed so poorly that, you need certain bits of information if a mystery is going to work, because otherwise you're pulling everything just out of thin air and grasping
Everyone's
at
Sauron,
straws.
and yet no one was.
It's rings of power level of mystery here, and that is not
All
a
right,
compliment.
so let's move into the quote-unquote accident, the fire.
The fire of the stone
I know
fortress.
you pointed out to me
I said it immediately,
you pointed out to me one thing that was very interesting about
okay. I thought you meant
earlier
the
in the
fire
episode.
itself.
You see a moment between Anastasia and
Coral. Yeah, I keep thinking Legend of
where
Korra.
they want, they kind of motion to each other, and they, Coral goes to look into the room where that big generator thing is hanging.
Like the reactor.
Like something feels wrong.
Yeah, and they both kind of like had this like vibe together. Like, whoa, do you feel that? Oh, it's probably
something
that
is wrong.
thing. Yeah.
That blowing up may not have been the result of a child setting fire to a book.
I don't think it was.
We don't know why that exploded. I have a couple of theories on
the
that
Jedi
too.
did it.
No, here's some possible motives. I'm going to go through multiple scenarios.
Investigator Naboo.
Different characters and how come they did it.
Okay, I'm down. Let's do it.
First, Korra did it. We didn't see Korra's body.
Coral.
I wrote Korra in my notes.
It's
I don't know. Coral, sorry. Coral did it. Coral killed the witches. Coral had a hard stance of the girls are not leaving.
Kill them all.
So she got in an argument with the witches when they had the council. And Mother Anastasia saying, I want to respect Osha's wishes or her dreams.
And we do know she was not hard enough on the kids and was very lenient and let them do what they want. Okay.
A little fight turns a little too rough. Explosions start going off. I think what happened to the main witches in the one room might be separate from the rest, but I think Coral maybe killed Anastasia.
Okay.
And that could be part of what's gone down. Next, Anastasia killed them.
Okay. This is going to be a hard sell.
Anastasia killed them because she wants the girls to have their own destinies.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme here.
You look at the room where all of the council lady bodies are, they all look like they might have still just been standing there having a discussion. Maybe they were refusing to go along with her wishes and she used the force or whatever. She killed them. Then her and Coral battled in the courtyard and Coral possibly won and walked away, but Anastasia could have been the culprit.
You pointed out because I thought, well, it could be the explosion that killed this group, but then you're like, crime scene investigator Naboo. You pointed out that the bodies are kind of like, they're not all... You would think if an explosion killed you, everybody would kind of fall the same way.
They'd be pushed by the force. They would have, by the force of the explosion, they would have been pushed away.
Yes, they would all kind of land in the same...
in a way that looks like they just dropped where they stood or were pushed backwards from where they stood.
Yeah.
Which where they stood was not around the doorway to where the explosion occurred.
No, so you would think if an explosion killed you and it came from a certain... if it was in the middle of you, you'd all be kind of spread out in a flower, like, blossoming flower. I don't know why I'm using that as an example for an explosion, but you get my point.
Next is simply the explanation that May caused the fire, which caused a chain reaction, blew a bunch of stuff up, and everyone died.
Well, we do see May, like, running around that room before the explosion, too.
She was in there, yeah. We don't know where she went after she started the fire. We don't know who she ran into. She could have been running from the Jedi. We don't know.
She seems to blame... I mean, we know she blames the Jedi. Later on, she is like 100% sure this is all the Jedi's fault. Now, that could be coping with trauma and wanting to blame somebody for what you did, too, right?
It could be. So there is the explanation that we got from Master Soul early in the series that May started the fire that resulted in all of them dying and such and such. There's the opinion that did the Jedi do it? I think that's one of the least likely. I don't think that the Jedi showed up and murdered a bunch of witches.
There is a key piece of information here that we have. Torben kills himself out of extreme guilt.
Well, I don't think the Jedi is like en masse. I think there was a fight. I think there was an argument. Possibly, again, this is why Coral's maybe not dead. Why we haven't seen her body. Or there had to be some fight, but I don't think all of the witches were involved. I think maybe it could have been Anastasia and Coral against the Jedi. Because the other ones are just all in that room by themselves. But definitely Torben got messed up and whatever happened.
He looks like burned or scarred or something. Hard to tell.
Maybe
something
they
happened to
couldn't
him.
stop what was happening, and maybe the guilt of that was eating him.
Okay, he tried. Well,
maybe the guilt of May dying.
He did say before that he died or killed himself. Like we thought we were helping or something like that. We thought we were doing right. So I don't know. Maybe they went in there.
Maybe he tried to remove May. Maybe he grabbed her, and the witches were like, "No, you don't take the kid." And maybe he started the fight.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. Maybe he thought that he was responsible for May's death, even.
Yeah, he may feel like he was responsible for the reactor blowing up when it really wasn't him.
And here's another interesting person who could have been the culprit. Osha. I know it seems the least likely in your opinion right now, but the mechanical disturbance is what bothers me.
Because she knows
she knows the Jedi exist. She knows that the Jedi are good, and she wants to be one, and who knows how long she's wanted to be one. But she wants to be a Jedi. She's got mechanical tools, a little mechanical mindset. So what's to say that she didn't start messing around with the reactor? Start maybe finding an excuse for them to leave this planet. To leave this planet entirely. Explore the galaxy like she wanted.
Seems a little much for an 8-year-old, but...
But I have to put everyone on the list. Gotta cross them out one by one.
Okay.
But there's lots of motives. Every single one of these people seems to have a motive right now. Soul seems the most genuine, but I definitely think you could definitely read regrets coming through from him too.
Well, he got there just in time to see both twins fall, and he had to make a choice, right? Mm-hmm. You could certainly be scarred for life for that. That.
I mean, Torben was scarred physically. That's my last question is, we saw that at the end of the episode, Padawan Torben has the scars that we see him have later in life. And then I kind of joked and looked at you and I said, do you want to know how I got these scars? Because I want to know how I got these scars. I do want to know. So do you think we're going to get answers to any of my questions? Do you think we're going to get an actual, factual, here's what really happened? Or are we just going to get a bunch of perspectives and they're not going to tell us what was right?
She even said this is based on Rashomon from Kurosawa, which is all about certain point of views.
But Star Wars fans, we need to have a solid canon.
Well, that's what I told you.
They seem to care about that.
Yeah, what I said last night, one of the problems I think with the show is, look, it could end up being, in the long run, a good show and make all kinds of sense and okay, but Star Wars fans, for better or worse, right or wrong, we like to know what is canon. We like, or not all of us, I'm generalizing, but most of us want to know, like, this is the story. And so when you present something like this where you're being very vague, I think it kind of irritates some fans.
Right, because I want to know what happened.
Yeah, I want to know what is the actual factual event here. I mean, you just look at The Last Jedi where we get a point of view of Kylo Ren, we get a point of view of Luke, and it's like, well, what did go on in that hut that night? Mm-hmm. What is the truth? And I feel like we're going to get something similar here, where we're never really going to be 100% sure.
So yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot with the episode, and I can't figure out, it's sad, I can't form an opinion on if I'm actually enjoying the Acolyte or not until the answers are out there, because now I'm just mundanely picking up story pieces.
It hinges on working in the end, right? Any mystery hinges on it working in the end.
I can say that it was a decent enough show. I mean, yes, the acting leaves something to be desired, and the story beats are a little generic at times, but I need a story that finishes and it's good, that I can rewatch and go, oh yes, if I rewatch that episode of Destiny, I can kind of pick out the pieces and I understand what was happening.
But the problem is it has to be good along the way. You have to actually be truly vested in it. It has to be a good story before you ever get the answers.
Blah.
It's very blah.
Something I'm watching at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and is it something I would watch if it isn't Star Wars and I'm going to review it and talk about it? I don't think so. I think I check out. I think this would have been the episode I'm like, I don't know that I really care.
Failed the 3-episode test, huh?
Yeah, you know me. I'll check out if something isn't hooking me after even one episode. I'm that guy. But for now, that's all we got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Talk about anything we talked about. And let's talk some Star Wars. And so until next time, thanks for watching.